Artwork, critiques, Photoshop files, and reference sheets are all available on my Patreon. Well, hello there guys and girls, I hope you're doing well. My name is Mikey, welcome back to my room. It's time for another tutorial. And today we are going to be taking a very simple look at how to draw a character from behind. Basically, what are the simple beginner building blocks and structure that we can put together to have a female anime character from the back. And if you're somebody who's familiar with also drawing characters from the front, or you sort of know what's going on through most of the images you've seen, and then you suddenly need a reference for your own artwork because you're thinking, what on earth is actually going on in the back? What is all that construction? How do I represent it for my own art? Then hopefully this beginner video is going to be for you. And also hopefully the answer to that question is going to be simple and quick enough that we don't get a headache while still managing to provide us with a relatively appealing character design. Or you're somebody else who's just come over from episode 1 because this is the second episode in our beginners how to draw course that I'm just putting together on YouTube thanks to your feedback. We're following straight on from part 1 where we've used construction to build a character from the front. So I might just skip past a few of the intro explanations and dive us straight into drawing with a cheap disposable mechanical pencil. Just got some printer paper here and I've given myself a 6-inch line because then I can split that into 1 and 3 inches so that I've got a little guide for proportions of our character overall. So let's put my hand on a scrap of paper here so that I don't smudge up the rest of the page. And to start off with a character from behind, I'm going to just start to draw a circle that goes a little bit more than halfway. So let's just warm up with some very light motions. And what I'm going to do is keep my construction lines a little bit heavier and firmer than I'd normally do them in real life. So if you're following along at home, you might be a little bit lighter than this. It's just so that it shows up for you guys. And then with this circle, I'm going to cut right into the side and sweep a line that goes down and slightly inwards as we drop past the bottom of the circle. Let's curve that off there. And as we drop down, I'm going to just hook right in down towards the chin, like so. So there's our jawline, and I'm going to do the same on this side as well. Now, this How to Draw series is focusing mostly on curvy anime and manga girls, but all of the basic building blocks and structure stuff that we're doing right now is basically taking major groups of real anatomy and simplifying them to basic shapes to work with as easily as possible, which means regardless of your style of illustration or whatever you're up to, if it's got nothing to do with anime and manga, this video is hopefully still going to be very useful for drawing the back. So I've split this head right across the middle there, and that's our brow line, even though we're not looking and facing that direction. And I'm just going to ease off on the excess bits that I've got on either side, just so that on this brow line, I can put in a paddle flap shape just here, and one just here. These are going to be our ears. And then just inside there, I might just do a smaller, quick, very light elliptical shape as well. And that's just supposed to represent that we're looking at the ears from behind, and that's the section of cartilage that's attaching them into the head. But otherwise, we're going to actually follow the exact same basic building blocks we did from the front until we make some changes. So if I've quartered up this head and I go another quarter down below it, then let's get a very light shoulder line coming across. And then I'm going to go right down to that halfway point and do the same for our hips line. I've got this little center guideline here because we're not doing any poses. This is all about just a flat character and the construction shapes to get a nice clean looking back going on, essentially hitting it from the back in an artistic sense and getting all those curves in the right places. And just like before, I'm going to very lightly just imagine a halfway between that shoulders and hips, and then teardrop down a shape that comes down from the head, maybe only goes as far out as the ears, probably no more, sweeps down and around. Also, if you're new to drawing, you might have a natural bias where you're better at doing curves in one direction, away from your hand, than you are doing curves in the other direction, towards your hand. So here's away concave, and here's towards convex. So having a center line and trying to work on some even looking characters will help you keep an eye out for if you're going a bit too far over from one side to the other. And then on the bottom, coming up from the hips, working much more widely and much more generously for our gorgeous, juicier character designs, I'm creating this big kind of semicircle shape up towards the teardrop, back down and around. Let's make sure that we're going out from that center in a relatively even way. And then a very flat version just at the bottom, below that line, just to bring it all in. And then now, where I've got this halfway line, at the juncture of this little teardrop shape for the chest, I'm barely going to go up at all. I'm just going to go right up here and right down there, because the back of your rib cage kind of comes right round from your floating ribs straight into your spine, whereas at the front, it goes all the way up. You've got this big cavity for where all your tummy muscles go. So if I just put in some shoulder circles, hanging a little bit off this line, somewhat slightly elliptical is how I like to put them in, tilting in towards the top, and then go down from our character and have a look at where we're going to put some legs. So I'm going as wide out as the rib cage to about here and about here, and giving myself a very light guideline that basically just tilts towards the middle. And what this does for me personally is it helps me remember that I want the legs relatively close together, not necessarily tight and touching, but otherwise I have a natural bias to give my characters very wide stances and lots of weird gaps. So now that we've got this in place, I'm going to think, right, if the feet are down here, I'm going to go halfway, maybe just a touch further up, vaguely on this image, and give myself some nice generous circles that are slightly on the inside edge, which is going to be our loose knee area. And then I'm going to give myself a couple of tubes going down. On the inside edge, I'm going to make it relatively straight towards that knee circle. Let's do that here. These are still our very loose guides to help us. But on the outside, I'm going to go right up and maybe a little bit past this hip and create a big skewed angle that goes inside that circle, down there. And then over here, let's come on out and go down there. And this is because with a lot of curvy designs, the thighs are nice and thick towards the top, but things tend to slim out a bit unless your character is very full and heavy as they get towards the joints and the ankles and the knees and so on. And that's where you start to get all of your nice curves coming from. Anyway, let's pop down here. I'm going to just create another little flat line a little bit lower down this circle. And from there, I'm going to have this nice, big, generous teardrop, which is a little bit more directly down on the inside edge, curving out a bit more generously on the outside. Again, these are our guides. Let's go down, around. That teardrop's coming out more generously over there. Let's just take that edge off just here. And then I can also imagine that from vaguely where the middle of this knee is, we've got this shin bone that's curving ever so slightly inwards. That's our shin bone line coming right down there, which means our feet are going to be around about here, following that line in. And I'm just going to draw the heel by doing a teardrop shape again. Lots of teardrops and eggs with curvy design that flattens off. So this is us looking at the back of the foot, back past the Achilles tendon, down into the heel. So what we've got right here is basically the same construction we've used from the front, but now we're going to start to fill it in a slightly different manner. And if you are finding this remotely useful, I have loads of tutorials on the channel with loads of different body types. So thank you very much for following along and watching this video and liking and commenting. Make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss any in the future. Right, let's go back up here. This little quarter point down the head on the back of our head is where the neck is plugging in to the base of the skull. So I'm going to give myself a line that comes down from here, and then just above the shoulder line, I'm going to just go out, sideways, and follow that curve around a bit, down, and out. Now, obviously, different poses have different energy and muscles to them, or muscle flexing and different shapes and relationships, but a general neutral pose for an anime character, we're just going to slope out on those shoulders a little bit. And then when I think about the inside edge, the back, because of the muscles, essentially reaches out a little bit more across over the arms than the front does, where things are a bit tighter across the chest, but all the topography inside is a lot shallower. So I'm just going to start around about halfway into that shoulder circle. I'm going to very lightly follow into the curve that I've got for the rib cage, but because we're doing a curvy anime girl, I'm going to bite in a little bit to that guide cage we've already got. So let's sweep in around about there, and then down and just bite in a little bit from there. And then if I imagine where we've got the obliques and the side, this is obviously where we cut in to give our characters a tight waist. And as we go down over the hips, I'm going to flow a little bit straighter and then hook down before we curve around our guideline shape. So let's just go through that as we see this line emerge, because these silhouette lines are still very important. All these curves that wiggle in and wiggle out as we follow our eye line down the body. So let's go in, then nice and tight. And then now I'm going to go out over this hip, and then I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And as I get near this edge of my ellipse, then I'm actually going to go out again, and I'm starting to have a much more generous line come out and around, slightly just scratching that in before it straightens out and hooks right in to where we've got that meeting point down by our circle. And where I've got this circle shape, once I'm here, I'm actually just going to go straight down just a little bit, and then we'll come back to it. So let's have another look at that from this side, where we're coming in, tightening into the waist, clinching that character, and then I'm just coming out and down before turning a little bit more directly downwards. And then once I'm near that hip, I'm actually starting a curve that goes round the leg and round the thigh. So let's go out and around. I'm doing lots of light strokes because I'm constantly looking back and forth between my distance from the center line compared to the other side, because my weak side is my right side. So I always want to be a little bit more careful with my construction line to make sure that I know it's relatively even. So I can always just come back and make changes. So let's go down and out and around, hitting that circle. So let's go directly down for just a moment. And then on the inside edge, I'm starting from the bottom of our box shape up here, this little cross that we've got for the hips, and I'm working relatively close to the center, inside here, about halfway down this top part of the leg. I'm going to bring that in to the leg itself, and then follow that slightly slanted line that goes a little bit inwards before curving around that knee just there. And again, over on this side, let's start from nice and in, like so, before we then just go a little bit straighter and show a tiny bit of curve around that part of the knee. Then behind here, what I like to do inside this circle is imagine an arch shape that's not touching the edges of either side. 1, 2, this big kind of simple curving A shape. And that's basically describing where we've got the change in the muscles as everything connects in the knee pit in the back of the knee. And you can indicate that without drawing a whole arch, but really just doing a line up here, maybe a little bit of a flattening just there. So 1, 2, and flatten. And it's a little bit like the opposite of when we're drawing the knees from the front, where we're doing a line that's a little bit inwards on either side. But now it means that we're going to follow this new curve all the way around to the calf muscle, where I start with this line and I connect it all the way around this nice curve I've got from this teardrop here, before, as we get round to the edge, I straighten up, maybe even go a little bit concave down towards that heel. And at the bottom, I'm putting a little bump for an ankle. And then on the inside edge, I'm not joining it up. I'm following things down the outside edge of this teardrop a little bit more firmly before hooking in on this side here and then dropping straight down with another slightly higher bump on the inside, our ankle again. So there we've got our heel. And then let's do that one more time. On the inside edge, I'm following this line straight down till it meets the curve of our teardrop guideline, comes in a little bit, and then essentially drops straight down with a bump. And then on the outside edge, I was starting from the inside of this shape, following that curve round, nice, gentle and generously, before then sweeping back down onto the outside there. And then just joining that straight line part, connecting it on each side, just like that. And then maybe with the feet, nice and simple, they're paddles that are disappearing away from us. I'll just kind of slightly indicate that maybe we'll see the edge of the foot with a little bit of triangle shape there. And a little bit of triangle shape there. Details for hands and feet we'll come back to later. And also, just so that we can see the structure, just to keep this quick, I'll only draw the arm on this side. I'll definitely do both, obviously. I'll just do it in the time-lapse section. But I'm still having an arm that's going about halfway down this section. Nice big circle for where it's connecting to the elbow. Smaller circle for where it connects to the wrist, lined up vaguely with the bottom part of the torso. And then I'm just going to connect that with a cylinder here, just a tube from this angle. But you can see that the back is covering the upper part there. And then with the forearm again, I'm actually imagining a bit of a very squeezed, flattened egg. The thickness before I actually then go into the thinner point of our forearm. Just like so. And in our elbow circle, right here, right in the middle, because this is the back of the arm, let's put another bit to indicate the elbow itself. That little harder part that pops out. And then with a hand in a neutral position from the front, it's like this, but upside down. So we're going to look this way for a very vague shape. When it comes to being a bit more zoomed out and drawing your characters overall, you don't need to get into the willy-nilly and all the details, if you don't want to. Just a vague silhouette of what the hand would probably look like in a natural position. It's enough to get away with what you need. So there are our fingers. And then on the far side, which is the front of the character, because we're looking from behind, we've got the thumb as well. So I'll draw the other arm in the time lapse. Basically, you've got an idea of what we're looking at. So now, what do we actually do about the back? The first thing that I like to start off with is the bum. Of course, this is hitting it from behind for your anime characters. What we can do is where we've got this area of the hips, this zone is going to be another slightly elliptical shape, a little bit egg-shaped, leaning in towards the middle. So I'm going to let it go down below our cross line, because the bum on the back of the body goes all the way down past the privates on the front. And I'm going to follow this shape around and up. It's almost following the existing convenient elliptical line that we've already got, which is great. Let's just do the same on this side. We're going right out to the side, back round and in. And what I'm going to do, just for a bit of clarity, is I'm going to gently erase our center guideline just a little bit, so that I can indicate a bit more firmly that we're only going a little bit up here to describe the bum crack. I really apologise. I don't know why... I'm sorry. I don't know why that tickled me. The moment that came out... So, oh god, okay, I'll edit that out. So, we're just worrying about these two elliptical shapes of the bum. When we go into more detail about this area on a character, you might find that I'm going to describe it as an upside down butterfly, where I have a bit that kind of goes in here before the larger part of the wing goes in there. Kind of like this, kind of like that. But don't worry, we're going to come back to that when we start to really get into the details. It's good enough to know that your bum's filling up that area there, and we're going to get a nice triangle shape right here. And so the bits that you might be drawing for the back of your character, nice and simply, imagining that all of this construction has been erased out, is the line for the bum, a little bit of triangle just up here, just where you start to get your bum dimples meeting in above there and there. That's the superior posterior iliac spine. And then I might like to put a bit of a line or crease shadow up the spine a bit here to show that the two trunk muscles on either side are creating a bit of rolling surface. And then I might also, on a relaxed pose on a character, just put a curve around about here, a gentle curve around about here. And that's just representing part of the shoulder blades. But other than that, it really is that simple. Quick curve here, gently and very lightly. I'm just going to come away from some of that construction in the back here. And what's actually going on beyond that is that we've got the muscles of the neck. Now, again, don't stress too much about this. It's just nice to know it's there. You don't need to draw it in. But we essentially have the muscles at the back of the neck, the traps are coming down and over the tops of the shoulders. And then they're coming back out and down like a very kind of stubby dagger that's pointing downwards. And they connect to the shoulder blades and they overlap the top a little bit of the shoulder blades. And then go into a point up in the top of the back like this. The shoulder blades, really, you can imagine them as these two flat plates of bone, which are vaguely triangular, going off and up into the back of your shoulder, connecting to the top of the arm. And then, for the most part, the lower area of the back is our little rib cage. Is going to be a big tortilla Dorito shape, which is our lateral muscles, and it just means that they kind of wing all the way up from about down here and about up there. We don't need to worry about them, but it's nice to know that they're sitting in place. So that's a very simple way to look at some of the construction of the back of your character. Your silhouette is still going to be relatively consistent to the front. We had a quick look at the front of our character previously. So ideally, if we took this curvy design and put it flat on top of this one, they would occupy the same volume. It's just the details are different inside. And although we've got an idea that we've got this shape, a bit like a dagger, pointing downwards with a big cross guard for our muscles over the shoulder. And it's nice to know that we're getting a line here and a line here from our shoulder blades. Really, you just want to have a little bit that shows where the curve of the bum meets into the base of the spine. Maybe a little bit of spine crease or just a line that goes up the back. But everything else can be relatively plain when you're looking at it front on. Less is more when it comes to the back of your character, because all the details really is going to be on the front, except for when you get a little bit further down the body and things become interesting again with the bum and the thighs and the legs. Right guys, thank you very much for watching along. I'm going to drop into some time lapse, finish off this and firm up the lines, as well as also showing you a character standing sideways on, so that I can just point out the curve of that body and frame, and then I'll see you at the end. So congratulations, if you came to this video because you just wanted to have a quick guide on mapping out the backs of your anime and manga characters, you've done it. We've got some very simple teardrop shapes that make up the calves down the back. We're just showing that they tuck into the hinge. Imagine this is a hinge joint down at the knee, just like I've got here. Imagine this is the pin that's going right through the middle. So that as we go down the body, we've got the front part of the leg muscles of the quads bulging out here. Maybe a little bit out from the back, but mostly straight. The hinge just plugs in where we've got the kneecap here and the rest of the shin is straight on the front, but bulging out on the back as you see these curves, raising it up a little bit higher when we're side on than the natural curves when we're looking from the back. And honestly, less is more. So do not stress when it comes to drawing the backs of your characters. If you've been watching from the other tutorial, congratulations, you've actually completed episode 2. In our quick free YouTube drawing course that I'm just putting together. We've got the structure and basic elliptical shapes that we've used to construct a character from the front. And as you've noticed, we've used those same shapes to give us the same profile for our character from the back, but we filled it in a little bit differently. With the side-on part of the character as well, I just wanted to show you that, yeah, these elliptical shapes we're using are actually tilted. The chest is tilted back. The hips are tilted forward, which means you have this very important, very lovely S-curve with the spine. I really want you to remember this shape. It's going to be coming back a lot. It's flat on when we're looking straight on. From the side, it's a wonderful curve that helps the flow of the spine go down from the neck right down to the bottom of the lumbar region. And when you see it at a 3/4 view on a character, that curve is a bit more shallow, but it's still there, curving out, around, down, tucking in before popping back out and just thrusting out. So if you want to have some nice characters hit from the back with the bum popping out to the side, get those nice curves in where you can. A little bit of extra curve for the hamstring. I've marked over the surface here, but if you want to actually go through the full-length version of this video, obviously it's a 25-minute video for YouTube. I've probably been sitting here and talking and drawing for an hour and a half. So the full-length, unedited drawing tutorials are available to some of you delicious people on Patreon. Go check out the link below. And if you'd just like to grab a copy of this reference sheet for what's going on in the back and the side, along with every single other reference sheet for every tutorial I've done, because we have loads of body types and lots of focus and lots of areas, you can grab that all for just $1 over on my Patreon. And that's what's actually going on with all those excellent names that you're seeing on screen. Those are my patrons, so go check out the link in the description. You get loads of cool stuff in return. So guys, I hope that made sense. Thank you so much for all of your support, your comments, your feedback. We are going to do a 3/4 view of our next character so that we're going to be able to have the full turnaround using our building blocks. And until the next episode, have a good week. Take care.